So the last couple of weeks, I have been sharing with you guys my state of being okay, not being okay, and then okay again. Such is life. And my biggest message was about it's okay to not be okay, which really has become a very common phrase nowadays on social media and everywhere else. But let me ask you this. Do you agree? Are you really okay to not be okay? But before I go on, thank you again for being here. This is Link of Arts with Elizabeth. Most of my life, I didn't think this way. I didn't think that it was okay to not feel okay. And it certainly was not acceptable to even share about this with anyone. Why? Because this was how I was raised, and it's very much ingrained in my Filipino culture. I know that this is a mainstream mindset across the world in our society for many generations among different cultures. But I'd like to focus on how it's like to be a Filipino when it comes to this topic. And if you're not a Filipino, I'm sure you can relate with this in one way or another. You see, being okay with not being okay does not really agree within our Filipino culture. Filipinos value the concept of looking good. And looking good comes in two parts. Looking physically great, the clothes you wear, the designer labels you own, the car you drive, the things you have, and so on. And the other part is it's creating this persona that everything is great, that life is good, and everything is happy and perfect, which obviously that's what I will focus on. In reality, we all go through the roller coaster of life. Life is not perfect. There will always be hard times, but why do we pretend that this is not the case? Because we want to look good. But at what price are we willing to pay? We care more about what other people think than actually pay attention to how we really feel inside. It's almost as if we would rather suffer in silence than have anyone know anything about the struggles we are going through. I say we because this is exactly what I did. This was my mindset. So here's an example. And for the record, I got my husband's approval to share this. So I am in my second marriage right now. In my first marriage, we stayed together for maybe about 3 years before I filed for divorce. The marriage was okay overall. It was good when it was good, but when it was bad, it was really bad. 6 months into it, that's when I realized that I was starting to really compromise myself. I was compromising my overall health, my integrity, and my mental health. However, I remained silent because I didn't want to look bad. I was ashamed to even admit that there might be something wrong with my marriage. I wanted to keep that beautiful and perfect picture of our life, of our married life. We had a beautiful house and we hosted a lot of parties and get-togethers. Everything looked perfect from the outside, but when guests and family left the house, we were broken again and again, and nobody knew that. On a side note, my ex-husband is a Filipino. We met here in the United States, but both our families actually knew each other way back in the Philippines. So there is a lot of connection there. So imagine the worries and the fear I had inside. What would they think? What would they say? What would they think of my family? What stories would they come up with? I wanted to protect my family. Fear consumed me. And actually, a part of me even thought maybe it would even be easier if I just pretended that everything is okay than actually admit that my marriage was falling apart and that I wanted out. I was worried about exposing myself to a lot of judgment, criticisms, and scrutiny. But then there was this big aha moment, God's grace. After many sleepless nights and days after days of soul digging, I realized that I loved myself more than what people thought. I cared about my well-being more than anything else, and that's including the desire to look good and that everything was perfect. So that was the beginning of my journey to learning that it's okay to not be okay. In fact, on my first date with Victor, my husband now, I laid everything on the table. I promised myself that I will practice honesty, transparency, and vulnerability, and that I was done playing games. I told myself that I would leave behind whatever I learned in my Filipino culture of caring what other people would think. And that was 10 years ago. Now, I need to point out that I'm still working on this because there are times that it still gets really hard because it's so deeply ingrained as part of my identity somewhat. But I am learning, I am practicing to be more mindful of these little things. And like I always say in a lot of my videos, awareness is key. And I believe that the more we become aware of our thought, of our patterns, of our habits and mindset, the more we can actually learn that we have options and that we can always choose how to do life. And so my intention here is just that, to bring awareness. The value of looking good is so prevalent among many different cultures, especially within the Filipino culture. To admit that we are not okay is a sign of weakness almost. Being vulnerable is not weak. Sharing your story is not shameful. Being honest, transparent, and vulnerable is not being weak. And for the record, I have nothing against the desire to look good. I just don't believe we should do it at the expense of our own health, of our own integrity, of our own values and mental health. If you're a Filipino, I hope that I was able to at least give you a little something to think about and become aware of. If you're not, please let me know if you resonate with any of these. I would really love to hear from you. Thank you again for watching and sending you my love and gratitude.